I am back. You're probably wondering, of course you're not, but I hope you are wondering where I have been since I started my 90-day YouTube challenge called Girl, Turn the Camera On. And I can't wait to fill you in. Basically, my husband had surgery about now 8 weeks ago, and it was a pretty serious surgery. And I tried to really manage taking care of him, making sure his needs were met, making sure my personal needs were met, and really focus on getting this YouTube channel launched. Now, I actually recorded some videos, but I broke my rule. My rule was to do just this. Girl, turn the camera on and start sharing. But unfortunately, I tried to do a day in my life, get ready with me, and all of these other fancy things that require editing, and I got stuck. And so that kind of took the steam out of me on top of all the other things I needed to get done, and I just fizzled. I really got frustrated because I could not get the sound right on one of my videos and a couple other things, and it just all fell apart. And so I am back to just turning this camera on, and I'm gonna allow the other things to evolve over time. But today I'm back with, I think it's day 10 or 11 of my 90-day challenge to turn this camera on and just start pouring into whomever is on the other side of this camera listening. How about that? No fancy edits, not gonna break my neck or, drive myself crazy trying to become this editing guru. Not yet anyway. I'm gonna turn this camera on and share value. So, school started yesterday in our district, and my youngest graduated 3 years ago from high school. And I think for the first 2 years when school started back, I literally cried because it felt so weird not having a child to prepare for school. I think I even put a Facebook post on and sent some money to a couple of folk to get supplies just because it just felt so weird not to be able to prepare my children for back to school. I really missed the shopping for school clothes. My kids were in private school for a long time, so getting those uniforms and then going out into the stores when they went back public and getting all of their school supplies and all the things. And so now every time back to school comes around, it just feels so nostalgic to me. And I do. Yesterday morning, I woke up super early. I was out on the patio at 6 a.m., just kind of communing with God and just being grateful for all of the years. In fact, I think I got a tear and it's coming back to me right now. I'm trying not to get emotional, but I was just really thanking God for all of the great years that I had to prepare my children for school, even though obviously it is toilsome, it's hard, the morning rushes, all the things. But today I'm here to share some value because with that said, having 3 children now gone up all the way to the master's level, I have a lot of value that I can share with moms who are just trying to make it through the school day, make it through the school week. So just real fast, because I'm not going to be on here long. I stayed at home with my youngest 2 children for 7 years. And when the baby went to pre-K 4, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm free. But that was just the beginning, right? Getting the children prepared for school and all of that was a process. But we've done everything from parochial school, private Christian school, to public school, to homeschooling. We've done it all. And so I want to share a few things that I now, in retrospect, look back on and think about what the things that made it a little easier to get through the days of school. So the first thing is to pray. Every single day, we prayed with our kids before school. We prayed for them together, me and my husband. We prayed for the kids, but we also prayed with the kids. Even if it was just about the time they were about to jump out the car. Some mornings it was like that, and we just would say a quick prayer. But prayer started every day. I wanted my kids to really understand that God is with them and that the Spirit is in them. And so every single day we pray to start our school days. So important to pray with your children. Now, before you pray, obviously, on the day-to-day basis, you have to prepare. And what makes it easier is I can't tell you the countless amount of lunches that I made for the kids the night before and the mornings of, because we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Some mornings it was just enough to throw a sandwich and maybe an applesauce and a bottle of water in the lunchbox. It's easier to have the clothes prepared, have the lunch semi-prepared as much as you can, depending on what you did. Now, I really liked for my kids to have a hot lunch. So sometimes I would get up in the morning and I would warm up whatever it was that I wanted to send and put it in their thermos. And that took a little bit longer, but it was worth it. And if you're a thermos mom, you got to heat up the thermos with hot water first because you want it to maintain the heat as long as possible, and then put the warm food inside the thermos. So it takes a little time, but I'm going to suggest that you really be mindful about prepping. Prepping will make your life easier rather than waking up in the morning. Everybody's groggy, everybody's tired, and trying to fly by the seat of your pants to get out of the door on time to school. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about was being present. So I was a PTA mom. My husband and I, we went to, the teachers' meetings to talk about the status of our kids. I think that people, administration, and teachers who see very present parents are very mindful about how they interact with your children. They just are, because they know you're going to be there. And so our kids were not perfect, but we taught our kids to behave in school. And one of their biggest pet peeves were, everybody else is acting like they're in a zoo. And that would get on their nerves, and home became their sanctuary and their refuge. My kids, two of them just really didn't even want to be bothered with extracurricular and dealing with kids after school because the school day was just so chaotic, and that drove them crazy. So being present, being there kind of helps. My kids had a little bit more of, I guess now everybody's talking about a regulated nervous system, but I could tell that they were a little bit more at ease when they knew we would be around. So we went on class trips, all the things like that. So I want to suggest that if possible, now obviously we had a more flexible work environment. We owned our businesses, so we were able to schedule that time to go on different things at the school or to be there for different things. But if it is possible, even in the evenings, if you can be there for PTA meetings, etc., you want to be a present parent. It makes all the difference in the world. I remember one time I was late to an award ceremony for my son. He was probably about the 5th grade. And even though Dad was there, he was waiting for me to arrive. And I have the best picture of him in the 5th grade. He's 21 years old now, but he was turning around looking for me, and I took a picture of him, and I'm so grateful I was able to create that memory and be there obviously for him. So you want to be present. Now this one is very, very, very important, and it is to be open to pivot based on your children's needs, right? So we have had school years that were great, but we have had some school years that took an emotional toll based on where my children were in their growth, pubescent, adolescent. Kids have different emotional needs during those times. And I'm so grateful that whatever the need was, we were willing to pivot. So what did that look like? That looked like sometimes homeschooling for us, because of the fact that we owned our businesses, I owned the salon, I could give my children their curriculum and they could be in the space that I had dedicated for them at the salon, right? There were times that, some of my children didn't do well. One of my kids really did not like homeschooling. So I put him in a more structured homeschool co-op so that he could be around other children but still have that structure. That was important for him. That was the pivot. My daughter, who is such a brainiac and she's so smart, when I decided to homeschool her, 8th and 9th grade, I actually brought in another teacher to help with certain subjects because I'm not a teacher by trade. I'm degreed, but not in education. So be willing to pivot based on your children's needs. Also, one of the things I've observed over time is that if a child is dealing with, say, bullying in a school, obviously it's going to be a challenge sometimes to take your children out of the local school. But if your child is emotionally broken by a situation at school, pipe up, think about what's going on with them, and consider how you can pivot that situation to maybe even get your child in a different school or talk to administration about getting the situation handled, put her in a different class or him in a different class, but be willing to pivot. That's going to be so important. You want to always be connected to your children's needs, and if that requires a pivot, pivot. And then the last thing I'm going to share with you today is our dinner table was a place for our children to be able to process. Every single day, for the most part, obviously, we sat down at the dinner table for years and years and years. Now, as they got older, started working, all the things, my schedule sometimes, dad's schedule, sometimes he was over the road, didn't work. But the majority of the time, I'll say it that way, and even on the weekends, we processed life at the dinner table. The dinner table for your family is that time to bond, to really understand where your children are in their lives, what they're going through, take a temperature of what's going on. That dinner table is vital. It's a teaching opportunity, life lesson opportunity, all the things. So the dinner table, it doesn't have to be fancy. It could be, a $5 pizza from Aldi, stick it in the oven, cut it up. Sit down at the dinner table together. And obviously we know these phones, man. Got to fight the phones, but you tell your kids 30 minutes, no phones. We're going to sit down at this table and have dinner. Then it will become common to them and they'll look forward to it because that processing time that they get to get things off their chest, to say some of the things that are going on with them. Sometimes, there might be a little breakdown at the dinner table where you as the parent can really figure out emotionally what's going on with your kids is vital. We start dinner time with prayer, obviously. Sometimes we end it with prayer. Sometimes it parlays into let's go watch a movie, let's go do whatever. But that dinner table and breakfast table is a time to process for your family and to bond. So I hope those P's help you. I'm going to go over them real fast again. Make sure you're praying with your kids before school. Make sure you prepare for the mornings. It's going to make it so much easier to do that. Be present as much as possible. Be willing to pivot based on what your kids' needs are. I think that's so vital, and it really was of great benefit to my children that I was willing to pivot and take on more responsibility sometimes, and sometimes share responsibility. Whatever their need was, I was willing to make those sacrifices. And then finally, process. Use the dinner table to process. I am back. And I hope to be back again tomorrow, but we are going to get these 90 videos up, give you a lot of value. Happy back to school. If you're a mom of a youngin' or young ones, plural, I wish you all the best in this school year. I wish your children all the best. God bless you, and we'll see you soon. Take care.